Hi there. Every Sunday, a group of autistic people get together and drop in. It's an informal group, but some of the things that people say deserve a bigger audience. So they give us permission for us to put them in an edited reel, and that's what we're here for. Today's edited reel of the conversations that we have about our own autism. Cheers, enjoy.
We speak. Our words, we listen.
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 Hi Nicola, I started the recording. Michael's dropped in. I think you were there last time Michael was in. I met him recently again at the Neuroconvergence, I think it was, conference 2025. So it jogged his memory that we were here.
Yeah. I was speaking to Harry yesterday. Long overdue catch up. It was quite fortuitous to run into you at the conference. Quite a long day, that. A lot of packed into it. But Sundays have been a problem for me for the last 2-3 months. There's a lot of things on. So wasn't.
Oh no, Michael, don't get the feeling. It's the whole point of the drop-in is people can drop in once and then drop in a few years later. We try to make it the absolute thing that it's a no obligations deal. We learnt very on from one of my mentors, and he was expressing that one of the real difficulties if you're autistic is feeling as though you overstep some kind of rule or you break some kind of law and you get excluded in some way. And it's a real tough thing when that happens to autistic people. So all the principles around what we do at Autistic Radio are people can fuck up, but they can come back and have another go. It's, as far as the drop-in goes, you just drop in, you drop out. It's really remove as much pressure from people as possible.
Thanks for the explainer. Yeah, I should know from the group I formed back in the early 2000s, which is where I met Harry. We called it the Dialogue Group. We sat around a round table in a round room. And the whole purpose was to get dialogue going, except it was face to face.
Wow, that's really cool. You're a pioneer out there, man.
And I appreciate how graft it can be at times. And then Harry took over for me when I needed a break, and I needed a good job. Yeah. The only thing that brought the group to an end was the people who gave us the space. They lost their funding, and so we were all out. That's a long time.
That's definitely the thing about the online groups, is they can be run on a shoestring. As long as people have got the will, as long as the group is willing to volunteer and actually make it a regular thing, it can be done on an absolute shoestring, whereas in-person is restrictive in loads of ways.
Sometimes, though, it's nice to see people face to face, have a good old-fashioned blether, like other people do. And with someone like Harry and his sense of humor, it was great. Yeah. Perhaps an interesting thing when we're talking about online, what do people expect from online and trying to build a community online and get dialogue going that way? Anybody got thoughts on that?
Do you mean from a networking point of view or the experience of using it?
I think from the experience of using it, how do you get conversations going and keep them sustainable in an online environment?
I get it. It's personal kind of space. But recently I've just been admitted to a group closed group on Facebook, and I'm trying to trigger certain conversations we'll see how it goes. It might not be the kind of space for that. So it's all about territory and terrain and reading the lay of the land, as it were.
Could you extrapolate a little more on what you mean by territory and such to people? What does it take to make people feel comfortable?
Okay, I'm not sure if I'm answering a question directly here, but I'll tell you a kind of feeling of experience about online groups. Because when I was first looking into my own autism, I did experiment with going out and looking and seeing what was online. And what I tended to find was a kind of clique idea where people had their own silo of like-minded people. It was almost like joining a party when everybody else had already got there and they had already decided what the games were going to be, how everything went on, what the music was, and anybody joining in needed to conform. And a lot of the conforming was about how you expressed yourself, what ideas you had. And I think everyone had a different flavour, but I didn't find them a very comfortable place to even try and start a conversation with somebody in text format. It reminded me of the old days of being before the internet, after the internet and before the World Wide Web. The chat rooms there, the text-based stuff was very aggressive and bantery and very fast and tricky. And I found that around that kind of feeling around the autistic groups personally.
I have autistic friends that I wish were online, but they're more into personal kind of physical meetings and socializing. And because of that, it's very difficult to maintain a kind of internet type presence with them, which is like, rapid dissemination of information. Text on your phone, you can send messages instantly to each other about stuff and respond. Although sometimes when I send a lot of messages, there's sometimes no response because the person's away out doing stuff in the real world. And I sometimes wish that they were online so as I could, set things up that are almost like chronicled in a sense of you can go back and look back on it and pick up threads of the conversation again, which out there in the wild world, the Wild West, is very all over the place.
I think for me it's the format. I can't deal with text only. It's not my format. And I can't deal with this online video format. I would much prefer to have exactly what we have here, which is a group conversation, almost like a group telephone chat, but we're in comfortable places. That's where I am.
I agree.
Nice and open.
Yeah. But to me, this is online too.
Yeah, I'm putting it forward as one of the versions of online. It's the one that fits me. The others don't. I can't negotiate them.
How do you negotiate real world where appointments are made? No online or internet relationship at all.
I don't do a lot of socialising in the real world. That's basically it. I also noticed there's a bit of a thing going on with your sound, Raymond. Sometimes it's loud and then it changes to soft and the other way around. And it's hissy almost as though it's because you haven't got headphones on. Maybe the settings aren't right to overcome it. I don't know.
Okay, just I've been sitting waiting, but I'll probably say what I was going to say. I actually was looking for a kind of an online forum type thing to talk about my autism. Well, when I got to that certain place where I really needed to talk about it. And I got in touch with a lot of people. My husband helped. We went through, I was looking for groups like this and just really shot off emails to lots of different people. And some of them were really, it seemed like it was going to be too much effort to be part of it, or I didn't really like their attitude. So I tried out a lot of places first and then felt comfortable with this because of probably the fact that it's really non-committal. And the more I've done, the more comfortable I am with it. But I, like you, Jules, I don't socialise in the real world. This is my socialisation. And so I feel like I've got to get it right. I've got to find a space that fits me, suits me, is going to not be something that I feel, oh God, I've got to do that again. And this is my comfortable place now.
I was out in the real world this week. I had a hell of a day. I went to an all-day conference that Michael was also at. And I also, straight after that, I did an online joint book presentation with Dr. Virginia Bovell, the one that, OBE, by the way, the one who does conversations with the Dr. Ryan, Colette Ryan. The two of them do a podcast with us. And she was down there at this university that was some kind of specialism in the research into autism. So it was one of their events for their faculty to be invited to. And she was presenting her book. And I was a head on a screen, but the video didn't work. So I was a voice on a screen. And we had a conversation there. And then after that, in the evening, at 9 o'clock in the evening, there was an online presentation for the educators, this worldwide group 9, which I think Ray's been to before. And on that, there was that Kieran fella, the guy that writes books, talking about not only his new book, but a lot of stuff to do with autism. It was a hell of a day. But if I think about the whole of that day, very little of that day, even though I was networking at this conference, was actually in person with people. Almost all of it felt almost as though it's online.
Testing. Just test the mic here.
Oh, that sounds super.
Yeah, I missed that link you sent the day after the event. Thursday went nowhere for me. I think it was Friday, that link. But yeah, I've been to their meetings before, yeah, that group. It was one of the people that used to come into the chat involved with 9.
Yeah, she is. Karen, she's a teacher in a school board in Canada. Karen Tim. We did a podcast with her. In fact, at that meeting, she mentioned us. She marked me out and said, I know that Jules is here listening to this and he did this and whatever. So yeah, she's encouraging us.
Yeah, Jules is lurking. And I noticed you were in the Embrace Autism group on Facebook, which, given that you hardly use Facebook, at least you're there. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I haven't popped in for a while. Autistic Knowledge Development had me do a 1-hour presentation, one of their early ones. More recently, they did one with the Bake Off chef, I think, or Master Chef. I can't remember which she won, who then came out as autistic. So it's one of these things in the press that she's been in a reality TV. She's now got a career and she's also autistic. So she was there as a bit of a celebrity the last time.
I actually have to do a presentation next Sunday afternoon, so I might not be here for the 444. I've got to be part of a group that we're talking about. Everybody's experiences is basically kind of an extension of what I've been doing with this other group, but they brought me onto a thing which is like they're trying to build a community, like a group sort of thing for local autistic women. And I've been asked to do a 10-minute presentation to them about my own autism, my own journey, my own discovery, how it felt to get a diagnosis, why I think it's important. And I've been working very hard at trying to put 51 and a half years worth of experience into 10 minutes. I'm mostly failing at that presently, but we'll see how we go.
Yeah, it's one of those edit things, isn't it? You just have to pick maybe 3 things you want to get over and just try and explain them.
It's picking the things, I think, is the thing for me. Is that things keep popping into my head. I think I've probably edited it about 50 times since I started it, and I only started it 2 days ago. I've got a kind of focus. I know where I'm going with it and what they're trying to get out of it. I'm trying to read their minds a little bit as to the tone of it. I know that there are going to be other speakers, but I'm the opening pitch. Do we call it a pitch? Yeah, okay, it's a pitch. but I'm going to be the opener for it, doing the first 10 minutes, which I'm not unhappy about. I think that's a good thing. Being first on is better than being last. Yeah, I'll be all right.
You'll smash it, Lucy. You'll smash it.
Oh, no, I'm going to smash it. I'm not going to be shy about that one. I will get there. But I know that whatever, even if it goes a little bit awry or whatever, I'll come out feeling like I've done it. And that's always a little bit of a glow in it. That may have sounded a bit cocky. Sorry.
I think Jules off to the loo, sorry.
Oh, you're right as well. Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, Michael, cut in on you there. Were you coming in? Is it yourself?
Oh, I was just responding to what Lucy said and made a remark about being cocky. I didn't think so at all. I thought it was pretty good. And certainly doing opening remarks is better than doing the last of the day when everybody's sliding out of their seats, planning their way home.
It's the waiting game that, like, I hate that thing online where you have to put a hand symbol up saying that you're waiting.
I find it's become even worse since AI has got involved in things like Zoom, because all of a sudden I get a hand coming up on my screen and I haven't done anything. It's just the camera's picked up that I waved my hand in front of my face. That's the only way I can figure what triggered the hand to come up on screen.
Exit saying there that GR's having problems for the whole experience here. You're on your phone, are you, or your laptop?
Yours sounds going a bit the same, Raymond. You're doing the same thing again. So it's loud and then going quite quiet and then booming again. So I don't know what's going on. Maybe we're all having difficulties. I don't know.
I'll just test it again, Lucy. I'll speak directly. This is me directly into the microphone. And this is me wandering off autistically to look out the window and not speaking directly into the microphone. Does that make a difference?
Not a heck of a lot, actually. I don't know. It's like when you start, it's quite loud and then it settles. I can live with it, but.
There must be a problem at Central.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it's anything that you're doing wrong. It sounds like something in the system.
I did change a setting or two last night because Windows has been really naughty. Microsoft has been very naughty in taking over the entire system due to its Edge browser. And so I was trying to figure out how to remove certain things, and I may have clicked something to do with my sound, but I don't think so.
Yeah, your sound was really consistent that time.
Yeah, it's not doing what it was doing earlier. It's not as clear as it normally is, though. It sounds as though there's a possibility it's coming out of the laptop mic instead of out of the plug-in mic.
I socialised this week, spent time with people just for the sake of spending time with people. And what I did was just go, I'm only going to have to do 2 hours. And so I did. When it got to 2 hours, I was like, that's me off. And it felt really nice, actually. Like, I wasn't really burnt out. I'd had a good time. And yeah, like, I think there was a few folk were like, oh, are you going already? But they didn't seem cross or anything. So I thought that was a bit of a win.
I would be so lost. So find that so very difficult. Is that strange? I can't get the concept of that because I'm always thinking about the exit even before I arrive, and I'm always looking for the exit door. This is why I'm so rubbish at it, because I'm already planning my retreat before I've even advanced on a situation.
I think it's the number of people involved that creates intensity, and of course, like whether or not you feel you're in control. Because I was out socialising for an hour. I was out there with an autistic friend, and we were on a mission. And the people we met were not exactly neurotypical, and the market itself was full of colourful characters. So, but it was noisy, but I just kind of zoned out, and I knew where I was going and what I was doing and what the time schedule was. So it's like, but I had it stressful.
Yeah, I think what made it worth it for me as well was like there was 3 generations there as well, and it's like friends that are my sort of chosen family. And so my kids were not the youngest. There were some younger ones there as well, but my two are like that really fun age for little kids to play with. They're just delighted when these big ones pay them attention. It was almost more like theatre than like normal socialising.
I take it was nearby as well, Nicola, because you wouldn't need to like get in a car and organise a trip. It'd be just turn up.
Yeah, I was home 10 minutes.
See, that's what I consider normal. It's like,
It's quite a good reason, I think, to have a dog as well, is because if you're out and about, you can always be, oh, I need to get back for the dog.
Oh dear, a white lie excuse. A white lie excuse, eh? The thing I'm enjoying about Nicola's thing, besides all the almost observing it happen as theatre, and I get that tickles me. On a practical level, she had it in her mind that, yeah, I'm going to go and do this. It is going to be this kind of socialising, and I'm going to do 2 hours. So it had a finite kind of thing as far as I understood it. So it was a manageable chunk, quite a big chunk for a lot of people. But then I suppose because it's a lot of family and kids and stuff, it probably makes it easier on it. But yeah, quite a big social chunk, but a manageable chunk for her that she chose.
I was worried about going all week, and any time I thought about it, I was like, oh no. So I was avoiding thinking about it, and avoiding confirming I would go. And on the day, even in the morning, I was getting like the no feeling. But then I got a little bit of momentum up through the day, like managed some of the stuff I had to do for the kids. And then I was like, I could do 2 hours. And I imagined how nice it would feel to come home, put pajamas on. So I did it. And I think it was like, I did probably be like to the kids, oh, do you want to go? We could just come back home. And because they were like, yeah, that'd be great, we'll go. It made it a bit easier to get that push to get out the door. Because I really am quite content just staying at home and like exploring things that I'm finding interesting and doing things that I want to do and being very
Nicola, did you get that after event buzz? You were talking there briefly about it, like how good you'll feel when you get home, but also that sense of like mission accomplished. But also there's this thing I find where like when you push yourself into the unfamiliar, unexpected things happen, and they might not be up to much. They might actually be a wee bit disturbing at times, but sometimes they're very positive, and they are things that can change your life. Almost just meeting somebody different, perhaps, or something turning up.
I think it was mostly just the same sort of feeling as I get when I've done something that I like met a goal.
I used to have all these built-in rewards, especially back when I was a smoker. That was kind of like the instant one, is I'll just get out of here for 5 minutes and have a fag. But then there was the other ones which were like, once this is all over, and just go home and just zone out, forget it all, or get home from work even. It's just imagine decades and decades of behaving like that. Wow.
I had a period of time where I would get through the day on a kind of, in lots of ways, grudging ways, because it was to do with work and having to deal with people, on the basis that when I got home, I could not only have a hot bath, but I could have enough alcohol to numb me. And in the first half an hour of getting home, I would take 10 units of alcohol within a very short amount of time, followed by probably another 20 units of alcohol within another hour and a half. So this kind of I'll have a reward later way of figuring stuff out might have some.
There's also the question of being yourself. The goal of getting through things and getting home is so you can go home and be yourself, do your thing. But very often we don't even know what that is, because in a sense, as you've just mentioned there, it's a numbing process we go into, or some kind of like alternate reality. To a lot of, to something, I can't think of the phrase there, but that is possibly who we are.
Only someone in the chat sharing that they used to drink ridiculous amounts of booze to socialise. I remember that from when I was younger as well, like drinking to socialise and drinking before I went out so that I could socialise. And now I just feel really sad that I thought that was like necessary, and I really wish I could have given myself some better guidance. I feel like if I'd listened to my intuition, maybe I would have just accepted that that kind of socialising wasn't what was going to make me happy.
When I was young, I used to hang out was involved with a rugby club. So nobody noticed if you're drinking or not. You blend in.
Actually, it's one of the things I've been considering this week. My long lost social crutches that I used to lean on, because I've been doing a bit of writing and trying to gather together how I've coped over the years with the different situations I've been in. And alcohol was like the biggie, and smoking was the biggie because it got you outside the venue for a bit, and it was more isolated to be on your own. And maybe dabbling a little in substances that probably I should have been taking as well. And I just realised how these things were they had to be in place before I could really get the courage up. And yeah, I feel sorry for the younger me, because I wasn't aware of my autism. So I didn't know that's what I was covering over. And I thought it was just a lack of being, able to socialise. I thought I was just a sociophobe, and I didn't try hard enough. So I thought maybe loosening myself up would be the thing. Turns out it really wasn't. And I'm now teetotal. But yeah, it was a big.
Sorry, was somebody going to say something? Anyway, I'll just put this in. I really miss the social scene around hash, especially during the 1980s, when it really was an alternative kind of society. And I'm not going to glamorise it or romanticise it or say anything about it was good or bad. It just was. And if that kind of social life could exist without, say, using a substance, it would be great. But I think it really is of your age. It's to do with your 20s, I think, when you're not too serious about your major commitments in life and you're wandering about and being very social. So that kind of alternative reality was great, like sitting around a kitchen table for most of the day, talking utter crap, was really great, and going for huge walks, and it was just such wonderful stuff going on. It wasn't all drug induced.
Someone mentioned like smoking, and I've been finding some of the research about nicotine and autism pretty interesting. Seeming to have a really calming effect and a really good effect on the gut as well. Yeah, there's some quite interesting stuff to read there, but they would of course be encouraging using like a nicotine patch or something like that rather than smoking. But yeah,
I vape, and I still do. I haven't cut that out yet. But my thing was with nicotine, and what I found is I liked the first cigarette of the day because it gave you a head rush. And then during the day, it was more calming. So it seemed to have its place every day, especially when I was working in the NHS. It was very stressful. I was chain smoking. I was outside like crazy, like outside the surgery smoking. And I just found that was the only thing that I could go, right, that's my little thing. That's what I'm going to do. That's how I feel better.
Evening, Harry. Somebody in the chat saying smoking is ritualistic.
Yeah, what you were saying, Nicola,
And I
I've
would
had
agree
friends
with,
who were in
especially
and
if
out
you're
of
rolling
psychiatric institutions,
papers.
some of them schizophrenic, and the amount of smoking that went on was almost unreal, constant. And there was a lot of theories even back then, decades ago, about this, the connection between nicotine and people with certain conditions as a calming measure. Because it's obviously a natural drug in a sense, and has been used by certain indigenous peoples for various reasons.
Yeah, I've seen that. Many years ago, I used to go to a lot of kind of groups, support groups on mental health. And the big thing about it wasn't just going somewhere to have a cup of coffee, a cup of tea and a biscuit. It's somewhere to sit and smoke. And I actually went to these groups not long before the smoking ban. And when the smoking ban came in, it kind of was the nail in the coffin for some of these groups because people had to go outside. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not a smoker myself, and I wasn't a big fan of smoking. I'm not a big fan of smoking. But you can see how that sort of culture change would have a major impact on a lot of people when they're out socialising or going somewhere. It's like it was so normalised for so long, and then they're saying now you come across, if you're a smoker, you're a pest or you're smelly or whatever, and you're shunned, which is not nice to see. A friend of mine was a smoker, and we used to go at the pub on a regular basis, and the amount of times he went outside for a smoke was incredible, because he was a sort of person that had issues around anxiety. He was always worried. He had a phobia about death. He was always worried about dying suddenly and all that. It was just something that a kind of life experience just put that on him, and it was lifelong. And then it turned into a cycle where he would actually panic because smoking can cause this and it can cause that. But my point is like I used to go to a social place with a friend, but he used to have to go outside because he needed to smoke that many times. Although there was another option to go to a beer garden, but he preferred this particular pub at the time. But it just shows you how much the kind of social side of things is being kind of held off as such from the rules, even though I'm not a big fan of it myself because I'm not a smoker. But I do understand the other side of it, and I also understand the addiction side because I'm addicted to other things myself, like caffeine, for instance. So I totally get, how people be so frustrated as well. I can understand that comment. Some people believe that the smoking ban was an attempt to destroy the creative engagement of working class culture. Even though it sounds paranoid, the way that our society is, just in UK culture, the capitalist sort of thing, and how to try that approach, it wouldn't surprise me. Even though it does sound brutal, and I don't think. It would certainly feel that way. Because a lot of thinking back to places I used to go, and this is me talking as a non-smoker, I can remember a support worker used to take us to a community centre, which at the time had a cafe, and I sat there and had a lunch, and there was a nice wee environment, and there was people that used to sit in there all day, and there were smokers, and you're allowed to smoke at the time, and they sat around this pool table. And I can remember going back in there after the smoking ban, and they were all gone, and there was like nobody there, it was empty. And that's just one example how a social place can be totally appropriated by that rule, because they've ingrained smoking into the culture for such a long time, and then they say you can't do it anymore in certain places.
You got it, Harry. It's ingrained almost like the nicotine stains into the walls. It's like they advertised it for so long, they promoted it for so long, that it became addictive. But really buy this, but they believe that ritualistic activity, that habit, that kind of reward and comfort zone creates flowing creativity, and a lot of the most creative people were indulgers in many things, and restriction of that is not necessarily conducive to a creative environment at times, although as somebody who's off most of his indulgences in life, apart from coffee, it feels like it's better going straight, doing it clean, but each to their own.
You certainly need advice, I feel, to get through in life. Obviously it depends what that advice is and how it impacts your health. For me it's caffeine, sometimes it's alcohol as well, usually beer. I'm sitting here with a can of Budweiser sitting unopened at the moment, and also food, indulgence of food. So yeah, it's just you need something, and a lot of smokers, it's like they need something to do with their hands. So there was this thing, vapes and all that have come into play, but chewing gum is like something to do with the mouth. It's like all those things. If you're told not to do something and it's a habit, it's a big thing to ask anybody, especially if it's addiction, to stop doing. You know, it's an interesting thing about not just the whole human thing, but just how that affects autistic people, of course, because a lot of autistic people smoke, and that's a comfort, and then they're told not to do it, and then it may be a stimming thing. And it must be a serious impact, especially if you're somewhere that you're in for quite a period of time where you can't go somewhere to actually do the stim, do the smoke. So it must be really damaging in many ways.
And I did it as teenage rebellion. My father was fervently anti-smoking in every sense. His father was a chain smoker who started smoking at the age of 11 and was rarely seen without a cigarette. He was constant, one after the other, roll-ups. So for me, the smoking thing was like, so I felt like it started maybe as rebellion and maybe going against the grain a little bit with my family, and then realized that everybody was doing it on the outside anyway. And so it became social.
I started smoking at 11, coming from a completely non-smoking background, with a slight bit of this exoticism about smoking when relatives on my father's side came round for Christmas occasions and left the place smelling of smoke and left silver wrapper from the inside. So there's a bit of a mystique about smoking, but it also was something that pretty well disgusted me, with ashtrays and things lying around. But when I had my first cigarette, I got a rush and I loved it. I expected as an 11-year-old boy to breathe it in. At the same time, I was trying Bacardi for the first time as well. And it disgusted me in some way. I thought I wouldn't need to or want to smoke. And I then got a rolling machine and started rolling my own cigarettes and selling them in the school, and also moving on to hand-rolled cigarettes. And so much of the time, being a smoker gave you access to things, like smoking behind the bike sheds in one school. In my school was smoking in the woods, sunbathing next to a pretty girl, being offered drugs if you were out in a leather jacket. It was a social signifier in the early 80s that meant at festivals, etc., you had skins and you might get something else as well. So many things were positive about it, except for the death.
Now, I do remember the rebellion side of it, particularly in school. It's quite funny thinking back on this, with the bad boys done. You're not supposed to do it, and they kind of hide behind an area of the school where nobody can see you, or they think you weren't seen. I think sometimes they were, but just nobody bothered them, but sometimes they did, because the teachers had to be seen to draw a line. But I do recall that. And I do remember being disappointed in a friend that took up smoking. And because I was brought up in a house where smoking was bad, and if you smoked, you know, basically the health consequences, and I think it was partly due to one of my aunties that died very young. Nothing to do with smoking. She was only 5, but it was cancer, and cancer was the big kind of word that was frightened everybody who took up smoking. Although I never heard cancer get used for anything else at the time. That was the sort of kind of, that's all happened to you. And it was a given, it was a definite. So I was always confused in my autistic logic as, why do people do it then? So yeah, it's certainly the culture thing, certainly the social thing. I do get that. And I certainly do get, as I said before, the addiction, especially when I think about the lives and of people and how ups and downs people have and coping mechanisms.
I not only enjoyed the stimulation, the filthy taste turned into all kinds of other tastes after a while. So I could taste different things in different tobaccos. So it became very much essential experience. The rolling of the cigarette, the stim of smoking, the mask. It was part of several of my masks, smoking. So it's very much part of autistic culture, definitely, yes.
this will be so horrible for anybody who's currently trying to quit to listen to us just now.
No, if they're quitting, they know why they're quitting. You know, they're quitting because something's making them feel shit about it. So, you know, if you are trying to give up smoking, just continue. Stop trying, just don't have the next cigarette. That's how I gave up smoking. And it's the only way that eventually works. Get some props, get some nicotine stuff to supplement so you break yourself out the stimming. But we can't pretend that there aren't reasons associated with autism about why we took it up in the first place.
Yeah, I think all this morphed out of the reward equation.
Yeah, I think I threw that hand grenade in because I associated somebody saying that they were looking forward to getting home and not having to be out and about with me thinking I was trying to get out of my social day into being...
It's like trying to control our sensory apparatus at times, maybe a wee bit out of control for us.
Without a doubt, I drank depressants. I drank alcohol, which is a depressant, to reduce my life experience. Other people drink alcohol to feel as though they want to be more sociable and more out and more stimulation. What I was needing was a generally socially acceptable, but often not, because when you drink a lot, you go past the threshold of human dignity a lot of the time. It's a accessible, let's say, call it, way of dulling things down, because often autism is about too much going on, too many thoughts coming into your head, too many different options when you're thinking about something. Often it's the absolute opposite of what they describe as monotropism. It's too many thoughts coming through you. And I used alcohol to take those down. I now use a full spectrum cannabis medicine that I take orally to take those things down. The other option is to take something really nasty and pharmacological that would scare me.
There's a phrase called label use that they talk about, which is like when something's used for not its original purpose. And I kind of do what they say on the label. You get exactly the opposite effect sometimes, like people who can fall asleep on, like caffeine or speed, or who take a sedative and are absolutely hyper.
My voice has been big. Could anybody read out some of the text?
Just wanted to jump in though and say what you were saying about like the alcohol dulling things. I think that's exactly why I did use it when I was like making myself socialise, to like dull down everything that was coming in, and it does put the blinkers on. Yeah, and yeah, I've got a medical cannabis prescription, and I honestly now think, like, for me, being on planet Earth, part of my T's and C's is THC. And like, I don't know what to read out of the chat. Coffee makes me drowsy, somebody said, and somebody else said I was mute in public unless I was smashed, an out of body thing. Yeah.
Sometimes folk with ADHD have issues with caffeine.
I think there's anecdotal evidence that drugs do not always work on the autistic brain in the same way that they work on the rest of the population, which in some kind of very simple cod science makes sense, doesn't it? If we believe that we are possibly slightly different in our brain structures, individual from each other, but in a kind of grouping somewhere, the autistic brain as a theory of neurology. But anecdotally, an awful lot of people seem to have opposite experiences from the norm to different drugs. And
I find myself resorting to a lot of the old hippie phrases of the 60s. Do your own thing. Anecdotal evidence is great. People say just coming off all drugs and stimulants and keeping fit and eating correctly can get you where you need to be. For some people that isn't the case. And I suppose it's like this idea of tuning in, I feel, at this late age. Just tune in and do your thing.
I think the difference I've made is that after coming down from alcohol, and I don't think I would underplay the difficulty of stopping alcohol is. You have to detox yourself over a period of months, which at the beginning, if you got yourself into the situation I got myself into with the amount, you can't give it up. You have to stage it down, which, if you think about it, is actually a real challenge, because you have a number of units that you have logged, and then you halve those units over a couple of weeks, and then you keep halving, and that takes a very long time. And all at that time, you have the alcohol ready and available to you, because you're not in an institution. You're out in the wild. In my case, in the back of a van in Europe, or in somebody's volunteer project. One of the ways to come down out of those kind of addictions is to use another crutch. And high THC was a way of allowing my body to physically dry out whilst my brain was still getting the same kind of tickling. But then you have to come down from that. And street weed, and where most people are getting a high, is so high in THC that you can't sustain that. So you have to then come down from that with a full spectrum, preferably something that is edible. If you want to get anywhere close to the nirvana you've talked about, that people do get to, really low use or even no use of any stimulant, and into health and fitness, that's a really big jump from where most people are in their everyday lives. But that's the stepping stones I'm using. And I'm gradually reducing the oral dosage of that, hoping to aim up to microdosing in the future.
Point taken. Yeah, everybody's tapering off. Even those using nasty pharmacological medications have to taper off at some. It's an ideal going clean and being straight, to be honest. I'm not exactly clean.
In the text, somebody's saying, I'm going into old age stoned. I'm off it until I hit 75. So, taking a break now, and when we hit 75, we're going to go for it. Is that right, Lucy? We're going to have a big fucking 75-year-old party. I'm going to have a bottle of whiskey, and you're going to get stoned.
Oh shit, yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna be totally out of my box, I think, for the last part of my life. Why not? I think old age is the time to start doing like really unhealthy things, because who cares?
Heroin at 80.
Right on.
Time's out.
Yeah, just so you're thinking there, I think that would be me losing myself, the eventual death. If you can have some kind of control over your death with morphine, I think you're doing a good death. A good death is hard to come by.
Well, it's 5:44 now, so our drop-in hour is finished, and thank you to all the people who have texted, and also to the people who have put their voices to this, that are going to allow us to put some of those words out into the podcast. If you join us here at the 444, your voice isn't recorded, your text isn't recorded, but the people here have given permission so that it's an example for others. See you again, always reliably, Sunday, 4:44 p.m. Cheers, guys.